Be live weather at 5.
Welcome in to Mississippi Live Weather 5. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. We have an active show, a lot to talk about, and severe weather chances on multiple occasions over the next 24 hours, including the possibility of tornadoes and perhaps strong tornadoes. In some ways, this is probably the most significant severe weather threat we've had since establishing Mississippi Live Weather, which is why it's probably a good idea if you tell that husband or wife or friends or family that downloaded the app to double check to make sure it's all up and working. They're on the latest version, and because we're probably going to need it over the next 24 hours at some point. Not everybody's going to see tornadoes, but there is a strong tornado potential on your Wednesday, in particular in the afternoon for some locations. Strong wind gusts a possibility, as well as hail. It could be in excess of 1.5 inches in size, and some localized flooding rainfall potential as well. So 2 rounds of storms that we're looking at. One that's going to establish itself overnight, and it's going to be primarily near the Tennessee state line. That will run over into early tomorrow morning, hopefully weakening by the time a lot of us go to work and school tomorrow morning. The first of those rounds, again, there will be some rotation with that, and so there is a tornado threat that goes alongside of that, but our probably more significant, more likely impact is with round 2. Strong tornadoes are possible with that chance for tomorrow as we head in the afternoon. Still some questions around it, but we are starting to get, again, some coalescing of our ideas, some agreement on positioning, timing, and everything related to that severe weather threat. So overnight, not expected to have a lot of activity between now and really midnight. Even then, I'm probably overdoing it at midnight. More so to say that it's while you are sleeping that our peak chance for storms that are strong will arrive. They're going to, again, start up in Arkansas, move through Tennessee, dip down in the northern part of the state of Mississippi. And so that's where that coverage of storms increases overnight. Our meteorologist Maggie McCall and I talking earlier on this afternoon, again, formulating our plan on how we're going to cover this with that potential for rotating and severe thunderstorms overnight tonight. So something we have to keep a very close eye on. Alcorn County would be one of those spots that we would be watching. Nothing out there remotely serious at this instant. 72 degrees temperature, that measure of moisture, that dew point at 61, lower than in some other locations. You are in that zone where, again, severe weather possible overnight tonight. The really northwest Mississippi, more the focal point for that. Tupelo in the transition zone between round 1 and when round 2 really kind of picks up. We're hopeful that limits the tornado potential for you. Our Mitchell Cunningham and Bowling Skycam out there in the Tupelo area shows up at 72 degrees because all that cloud cover just has not bumped those temperatures up super high for today. In Winona, you can see a bird there soaring. That measure of moisture a little higher, temperatures a little warmer. You are more in the zone where tomorrow at this time, we're probably talking tornado threat and hopefully not directly over top of you. Appreciate the North Mississippi Storm Chasers for being our partner with all these cameras. And in Macon, you'll still probably be by midnight tomorrow night dealing with thunderstorms. Tomorrow afternoon and evening, the peak time frame for us to see those. Mama Justice Doppler radar only detecting a few sprinkles out there, not a lot of significant and active weather there. But this front that we're looking at to the north and west, this is going to be what does initiate those thunderstorms. Storms are going to get going on this front within the next couple of hours here. They're going to spread through Arkansas, and really the locations here very near the Tennessee state line, the most likely locations to see some severe weather for tonight. As we look at that severe weather risk for tonight, we'll kind of plot it on the map here. You can see there in the yellow the most likely locations. Again, this talks about the number of reports, not necessarily the intensity of those reports. That is something to keep in mind because our tornado threat follows almost the exact same outline. And when you look at the potential for significant or strong tornadoes, that's what we're talking EF2, potentially an intensity there. Anytime we're talking about that, we're talking about damage to well-built structures, not just manufactured homes or cars or when you're outdoors. That's when we start having some real issues there potentially. And so we do find the northwest portion of the state, locations such as Holly Springs or Ripley or north of Oxford there at Abbeville, back towards Senatobia and South Haven and Tunica, all kind of in that potential zone there where we could possibly see a strong tornado with our overnight threat. Damaging winds also a possibility, as well as large hail. And again, we'll dig into all these threats, including using our True Shield Roofing significant hail threat back out primarily into Arkansas. So the tornado chance is honestly one of the more concerning parts of our overnight setup tonight. This is going to be a brief look, and we're going to dig a lot more into this with a bunch of different projections and things here in just a moment. But as you can see, that front kind of lighting up with more thunderstorms back into Texas, some of those rotating thunderstorms back into Arkansas. by around 10 p.m. tonight, not into our area. While we have some thunderstorms approaching, you can see it might be 2, 3 o'clock in the morning before these really start to dig in here. I'll slide below that front there for a moment, and you can see some of those storms, maybe some with rotation there on that one near Tunica. I'd say more likely with this one, the track there north of Holly Springs, closer to Faulkner and the Corinth area. Storms should hopefully weaken a bit as they move deeper in through northeast Mississippi, and that is a way too fast look at it. We're going to go a lot slower. We're going to look at how this could play out here in just a moment. But this is the general overview, which is to say, if you're down here in, say, Winona, where we showed you that camera a moment ago, Caledonia, Columbus, Starkville, even West Point, and probably Houston and Amory, you're too far south to see any significant severe weather tonight. So as long as you have weather call, and I would say this, for all of us, I don't think we need to be staying up all night with this as well, but just be aware that in the northern part of the state, this is a night where some of these thunderstorms could potentially be strong to severe, and some of that threat does continue into the day tomorrow. So looking over the course of the next 24 hours, we'll have some thunderstorms initially in the morning, perhaps a little bit of a lull around midday where things sort of recharge. Mid-70s for highs, but ultimately, I think we have enough heating and moisture there that thunderstorm chances really kind of pick back up into the afternoon and evening with a severe weather threat that does include damaging winds, yes, large hail in excess of 1.5 inches in size, and potentially tornadoes that are strong. Unfortunately, on the table is a possibility with this setup. Coming up here in 60 seconds, we will look at our triple threat, breaking down the timing as to where those rotating storms are going to move through, how much large hail and damaging winds those produce. A couple different versions of Futurecast to go along with that there so you can plan ahead as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center in 60 seconds.
You looking for quality? Harvey chefs start with the best cuts of certified Angus beef. Then we season them with a special blend of spices before they're grilled to perfection over a mesquite wood fire. And when paired with one of our signature sides, well, the only thing you need to bring is an appetite. Now that's quality delivered to your table. Harvey's, a difference you can taste.
Every legend starts somewhere.
Not with perfection, but with a decision.
The decision to show up, work harder, and believe this place can change everything.
At Northeast, you're more than just a number.
We're built on opportunity, and our students are willing to rise to the occasion.
Here, success isn't handed to you. It's earned.
You don't just leave with a degree, you leave as a legend.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lovhaug.
You're watching Mississippi Live Weather here at 5. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Loppon. We're looking at our North Mississippi Storm Chasers camera there in the Aberdeen area, looking toward the horizon. A little fuzziness there. A few showers approaching Aberdeen. 75 degrees, the temperature there in Monroe County at this point and time. No storms of any significance out there tonight. I think it'll be overnight before we start to have any real issues out there. As we look at our 1 hour loop here, again, these are mainly just, glorified sprinkles moving from southwest to northeast through. Not a lot of activity. Obviously, we had quite a few more thunderstorms earlier on today. Well, thunderstorms might be overstating it, but rainfall and thunderstorms up around Hernando, mainly north of the Corinth area. I'm going to start off with our 7-day forecast here for a moment, simply because it's going to take us so long to get there over the next few minutes. I just want to kind of give you an overview for a moment. Wednesday, 2 chances for storms, one pre-dawn, one in the afternoon. That's what we're going to spend the afternoon in particular most of our time talking about today. Thursday, we're going to have some showers. First part of the day, the most likely, but we could have some that extend in the afternoon. We're dry Friday. We're dry Saturday. Additional rain chances coming by Sunday. Temperatures boosted there. Maybe some thunderstorms with that chance as well. Not a high confidence scenario through Monday of next week. But obviously, Wednesday is the day we're going to concentrate on here. Here's our severe weather risk for Tuesday, and this is for tonight. And this goes from 6 a.m. this morning until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. So even though this is Tuesday, this also includes Tuesday night, which would be tonight. And you'll note here locations near the Tennessee state line, the most likely locations to see severe weather. For your Wednesday, all locations including that severe weather threat, where you see the oranges here that do extend from Eupora, Kosciuszko, Starkville, southward past Louisville and Macon. This is kind of the bullseye we talked about last night. There'd be a zone where we'll most likely see it for our Max South viewers down in Philadelphia, Carthage, back down toward Raleigh. More likely, again, to see some of that later on in the evening for tomorrow. But all of us under that severe weather threat that does include the potential for damaging winds, tornadoes, and significant large hail. To assess all of those threats, we're going to use something we call triple threat. If you only tune in every once in a while, this is something we show fairly regularly during severe weather season, or at least have. It allows us to look at damaging winds, tornadoes, at least the rotation that could lead to tornadoes, and large hail, all on the same graphic, so you can assess all three of those threats at the same time. It's a Mississippi Live exclusive. This is triple threat. Note tonight what it does have. Storms, isolated storms back out there into Arkansas and back into Texas with sustained rotation producing damaging winds, large hail, and possibly tornadoes. That's what these kind of pink-white stripes are. That's very strong rotation out of isolated storms. We have seen that consistently in this projection. If you watched us yesterday, you definitely saw that when we were talking about this as well. So some of those storms rotating for significant periods of time as they approach the Mississippi River. We pick things up at midnight here. That's when it starts to move through the northern part of the area. And just kind of some house cleaning here for a second. If you're south of this, the reason I'm not talking about you right now is we don't have a threat with this in the next 12 hours or so. So this is really going to be, again, overnight near the Tennessee state line, the most likely locations to have some issues here. So let's look a little closer at this. So rotating thunderstorms, again, moving through South Haven there, a couple around Hernando. Now, let me say this. The fact I have two basically right over top of each other. Look at the spacing you have back here, back to the west, right? Fairly decent spacing. Let's actually check so we can kind of give you a gauge there. But the fact that those are spaced out, the center of the rotation on those by about 20 miles, that seems reasonable. I point that out because when we get over here in these storms closer to Holly Springs, they're a little more overlapped. And typically when they overlap, we don't have two areas of rotation. We have one, and we typically have strong winds, maybe spinning up a tornado. But this is overnight, and that's where we're vulnerable. 1:32, 3 o'clock in the morning, you'd see a little more dominance on that storm. It shows there south of Holly Springs to Hickory Flat, producing hail. That's what we show there in the purple. And then obviously that rotation as well. I'm going to turn off that measurement tool there for a moment and kind of clear that off. But you'll note again, this is well into the overnight hours, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, giving you an idea that somewhere up here near the Tennessee state line, we're going to have some rotating thunderstorms. It's going to happen deep in the overnight period. So you need to be thinking ahead about how you will find out if you're in danger. We talk about it all the time, and for those of you that have it, you get it. Weather call will wake you up, and that's important tonight because you can only get to your safe place if you know you need to get to your safe place. And let's be clear, you haven't heard a single bing during this broadcast on my phone. It's because it's kind of a do not disturb. But if my wife called me right now, which she can't do, she's on the air, but if she were to call me right now, it'd bust through and do that. You need something that breaks through your do not disturb, that wakes you up for tornadoes that are confirmed, for severe thunderstorms. Weather call does that. But either way, we need to be building our armor, making sure there are multiple ways in which we know that we can get information. The Mississippi Live Weather app, you can't rely just on Facebook. Facebook does all they can to get you to stick on that platform. That doesn't mean they're going to prioritize us just because we're talking about life-saving severe weather information. We hope there's not a lot of tornadoes overnight, but the fact that there's any potential means we need to be thinking about multiple ways to find out if we're in the danger zone related to this. And we have a full list of storm shelters on our website. I appreciate our friends at Lee's Storm Shelters for sponsoring that list. These are community shelters. Cannot guarantee these are going to be open. You'll probably want to call City Hall in some cases for that. More likely that they're going to be open again for tomorrow there. But look for that logo in the app after this broadcast, and you can see that whole list that we have on there. I bring that up to say that we've started a partnership with our friends over at Tupelo Home Center because we need to talk about one thing that happens overnight. When we had the 2023 tornadoes, all three people that died in manufactured homes, and it is never safe in a tornado to be in a manufactured home. In the United States, you're 20 times more likely to die if you're hit by a tornado in a manufactured home. So our friends at Tupelo Home Center, again, giving away a storm shelter every time you buy a manufactured home from them. But either way, we need to be thinking about someplace safer on a night like tonight. And that might be a friend or family member's house in this zone we're talking about here. I want to be crystal clear on this. The zone we're most concerned on this overnight threat is really north here. I'd say north of Clarksdale, north of Batesville, north of Oxford, probably north of New Albany, north of Saltillo. Models have been pretty concise on trying to keep this threat near the Tennessee state line, but you need to have multiple ways to find out if you're in danger overnight. I cannot emphasize that enough. So we go beyond that into tomorrow. Notice we don't have a whole lot of activity that shows up between, say, 6 a.m. and noon time. The atmosphere recharging. I have other projections we're going to show you meant to have more storms during that time period here. But now we have those thunderstorms starting to form, even noontime, a few with some rotation with them developing, and large hail. So now this is what occurs overnight up here north, what occurs tonight. As we look toward tomorrow, some storms with some rotation, hail, damaging winds back here, Shelby to Charleston, trying to expand closer to Water Valley. But one thing you might miss, because it's almost overlapped there, is this little track that we have up here closer to New Albany. We're going to have storm rotation on some of these thunderstorms, but I have a question in my mind as to whether or not it's going to be strong enough to extend to the ground. It has a lot to do with the positioning of a cold front. I think that could be one thing that helps a lot of us north of that front from having a more significant severe weather threat. But notice if it's right at the front, and that's what it depicts here for Bruce back toward around Tupelo there, north of Houston. It does show one track there. I know we have a lot of sensitive folks here in northern Monroe County. Just know it could be south, could be a little farther north. The positioning is not perfect. But what we need to note here is that our rotation track is kicking out some strong rotation on these. Hence the reason we're having this discussion about the potential for strong tornadoes tomorrow. In the afternoon, as you can see there, a couple isolated reports of strong tornadoes, not impossible, into early evening. Now, time frame is probably going to be after 3 p.m. in all likelihood, but we're going to have to watch that pretty closely. Things have sped up a little bit versus where we had them last night. As we go into your Wednesday evening, additional rotating thunderstorms. More now US 82 corridor, southward closer to Louisville there. We have a storm producing large hail. That's what that depicts. Another one there rotating near Canton. Each of these, again, a potential to possibly have some rotation that tries to produce a tornado. But I think the main thing to take away from this is as we go even beyond, say, 9 to 10 o'clock tomorrow evening, some rotating storms, a possibility out of these. So that's why we need to be thinking about how we'll find out if we're in danger. And Facebook is great. Love it. YouTube, same thing. But we need to make sure we have something that's going to buzz us and say, hey, pay attention just in case. Maybe it means downloading that on your phone for those different apps as we've talked about that we have. Just search for Mississippi Live on all of the different platforms there to find that. Rotation continuing into tomorrow evening, 10, 11 o'clock, and beyond midnight, still some possible, like we show one little batch there close to Greenwood. But the takeaway, I think, is pretty simple. You can go wide here on the shot and bring it right back in. Where's the bullseye? Tonight, back out into Arkansas. But as you'll see here, north, really the northern half of the state of Mississippi through central Mississippi, the bullseye for rotating thunderstorms. And the rotating thunderstorms are going to be the ones that produce the strongest wind, the largest hail, and that tornado threat. And unfortunately, that tornado threat could include the potential for strong tornadoes. We're going to look at a slightly different version of Futurecast here and show it maybe more in the normal sense for a moment. And this front is key, this blue line that you see here. The positioning on that front, any storms that form on it and stay on it are going to have the enhanced rotation potential with them. Overnight, we're 11:30 here. At that point, still no storms of significance here in North Mississippi. It's after midnight. We show 12:30 or so, and I'm going to bring it in close, and we're going to highlight, again, locations north. I'm not ignoring you in Ecru or Pontotoc or Tupelo, but I am going to focus where there's more issues, and it's going to be up here closer to Collierville and South Haven and up toward Tunica. Now, by around 1 a.m., most of those storms still showing up just slightly north of the Tennessee state line, closer to Oakland and Bolivar, Tennessee. But I'd say that's pretty clearly there, a rotating thunderstorm depicted there west of Middleton. So we'll have a few rotating thunderstorms like this one that kind of forms there near South Haven and moves toward Piperton. Timing on that, 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning, rotation possible. Tornado warnings, I expect we'll probably get those. Do they produce tornadoes to touch down? Knock on wood, hopefully not, but there is a potential that if they do, that we could see a strong tornado out of this as well. Notice that thunderstorm, which looks more like a wind producer as it gets out here a little north of Ashland, closer to Ripley by around 2:30 in the morning, approaching Corinth. We'll continue tracking eastward. That one picking up a little more speed there by around 3 to 3:30. So we do expect it to be pretty active overnight tonight with the potential for damaging winds and tornadoes. I mean, that one's still there. Once it gets there past Iuka, still has some rotation on it, 4:30 in the morning, toward 5 to 6 a.m. Most of these storms behind the front, though, and this is a critical thing we're going to talk about in a second, the storms behind the front are going to have a more limited rotation in the form of tornado rotation threat, if that makes sense. More on that here in a moment. So again, here's our tornado risk for Tuesday. This is tonight's risk. This is the risk for what we were just talking about a moment ago. I know Tuesday, well, hold on, that'll be Wednesday morning. This risk is from 6 a.m. this morning until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. That's why it says Tuesday. It's always a little bit confusing, but I just want to get that out of the way. It's important to note that in that same zone where we had that yellow on here a moment ago, that's the same spots here where we have the potential to possibly see a strong tornado. And EF2 tornadoes where we're starting to cause some decent damage to well-built structures. So we need to be thinking, we need to be planning as to where we will be overnight this evening. Our meteorologist, Maggie McCullough, is going to be right here. She's going to be tracking things. She's coming on the shift at 1 o'clock in the morning, and she'll call me in as necessary, and we're going to try to tag team this with Gabe on paternity leave. We have just one less person in the rotation tonight, so we're going to get you covered. We're going to keep you covered, but just be aware that you're probably going to see Maggie before I hop in to kind of help her out if we have a tornado threat. She's got well over, I guess, about 5 years experience at this point here back in Memphis and Tupelo, so does a great job. We're glad to have Maggie a part of our team. 6:37, 7:30 a.m. She'll be on tomorrow morning, but obviously well before that in all likelihood. Damaging wind threat, possible out of those same rotating thunderstorms, as well as the potential that we could see large hail, though I think the peak hail potential with those individual supercell thunderstorms back out there into Arkansas. Your IMPC school day forecast for tomorrow. Let's talk about that elephant in the room. Do you send your kids to school tomorrow? Absolutely. Are my kids going to school tomorrow? I haven't even thought about trying to keep them home. I'm not going to. I'm going to send them to school. One of them goes to kind of a half homeschool school. The other one goes to public school. They're both going to school tomorrow. I think the severe weather threat probably peaks after the final bell for tomorrow and then prior to the time the buses run in the morning. There's that, obviously, those locations near the Tennessee state line with the peak threat. But tomorrow, I think the school day largely, hopefully, should be in good shape. And I'll just tell you, you make your own decisions. Administrators will do that as well. My kids are going to school tomorrow, and I'm not going to think twice about it. I think it's the right move. In my case, you have to make the judgment call for what you choose to do. Your tornado risk tomorrow, again, the southern portion of the area, the most likely locations where we're going to see those multiple chances for rotating thunderstorms. We're going to dig deep here in just a moment, looking at where the strongest of those are going to be, timing it out with Futurecast, more standard version here in a second. But that strong tornado risk, really everybody south of Red Bay, Tupelo, and Grenada. You saw on Triple Threat a minute ago how it had those rotation threats farther north there. That's going to depend on where our front lands. And really, it's kind of a combination of the front and the rain-cooled air running ahead of that. Damaging wind, all locations with at least a limited threat for damaging wind gusts, as well as large hailstones. And our True Shield significant hail risk does include about 2/3 of the area with hailstones that could potentially be in excess of 1.5 inches or larger. Our friends at True Shield Roofing, of course, if you send in a picture of hailstone larger than 1 inch, and it's the largest hailstone picture that day, they have a $100 gift card for you to make your bad day a little less bad. And we appreciate them for being willing to kind of partner with us there. You have to send those pictures in using the Mississippi Live Weather app, though. That's the caveat with that. This version of Futurecast, a little different. Let's talk through what we have here. So the strike model, our exclusive strike model, kind of whittles everything out of here, gives the atmosphere a little time to recharge. This particular version has a couple things. It has the front back here, and it has kind of this boundary of sort of rain-cooled air running a little bit ahead of it there. Everything behind the front, wherever that blue line ends up being, should be what we call elevated, or at least not tapping into the most unstable air. So the storms that are behind the front, this could still have maybe some hailstones with it. And again, Futurecast here, our HRRR is more aggressive on trying to produce some thunderstorms during the day. I think these are loud. I think they are annoying. I think they're disruptive. I don't think they are tornado producers in the late morning through midday time period tomorrow. Things could change. Weird stuff sometimes happens on our high-end days. But at this point, I'm thinking, we're probably beyond 1:30, 2 o'clock before those kind of storms start to form. And again, this could have some hail with this back toward Olive Branch, but I would say most locations behind this front should probably be dealing with more hail and maybe some wind as opposed to a tornado threat. So that's why I think is more the case up here toward Corinth. That's why we showed you a more limited tornado threat a moment ago there as well. But it's the storms right at the front, like the one it depicts there toward Houston. I'm gonna see if I can look below the front. I don't have my front as high up here as when we do that, that other, what is it? We call it the crossover there that we have. But that's those storms right at the front. Those are the ones we're going to watch there to possibly try to rotate and produce tornadoes. Most of these are behind the front, though, depicted here by around 5:30 tomorrow. That's why the positioning on this front is so important. If it's even a little bit farther north, that now encapsulates folks such as Tupelo, Grenada, Greenwood, Greenville in that strong tornado threat. Hence the reason we showed you that a moment ago. So let's talk about why, what I said. What is the difference and why that matters? Fuel tonight for thunderstorms, significant. And as you can see, the batch of thunderstorms here, the ones we've been tracking up here near the Tennessee state line, eating of those storms, tapping into a decent amount of fuel, lower half of the spectrum, but still plenty of fuel for strong to severe thunderstorms. As we head overnight, that fuel is chopped southward by 7 o'clock in the morning. And as we go through the morning tomorrow, notice the majority of where we would have shown those morning storms are up here, where we don't have what we call surface-based fuel that's tapping into everything the atmosphere has to work with and getting air coming from the surface. We need surface-based air rising to see rotation that produces tornadoes. You can get rotation in other ways, but unless it's what we call a surface-based storm, where it's really tapping into this kind of fuel, it's not producing a tornado. And so you'll note that there's a sharp cutoff here, maybe too far south on this projection, but a sharp cutoff on where we have that fuel depicted there. Where we have it, 3 p.m., we're now up here on the extreme half of the spectrum with just a ton of fuel available for thunderstorms. And because of the way the atmosphere is shaped tomorrow, the way the winds are going aloft, storms are going to try to track along this boundary, right along wherever that front is. And if they can attach that boundary, they're going to have extra rotation and they'll be more likely to produce a tornado. And so that's what makes this the critical factor that we, even at 9 and 10 o'clock tonight, we're going to be refining. Where is the edge of that most extreme fuel? Because that's where we'll plot our front, and that's where we're most likely to see the strongest storms and tornadoes. And we'll probably continue to have storms into tomorrow evening. So I've removed that front for a moment. And as we showed you a moment ago, say 6 p.m., it was somewhere in this zone here, meaning these storms out toward Dumas, Arkansas, could be a little bit behind that, not tapping into the most unstable air. Either way, this is a lower resolution in time model, still high resolution for positioning. But clearly we have a lot of storms producing rotation, a lot of storms trying to produce tornadoes and hail by tomorrow at 7:30 or so. And unlike last week when we thought we could have storms and then, well, we didn't really have storms, we didn't have anything to spark off storms that day. We were just going to take, do we have enough heating to really pop them? We didn't. Tomorrow we have a front, so we have something to spark storms. That's why, again, the confidence is higher on seeing storms, and also then, if we can get rotating thunderstorms, seeing the potential for tornadoes. Because we have some of those ahead of our line there. Kosciuszko, close to Chula, that one near Eupora, a few out toward Columbus there as well, with rotation on these back west of Yazoo City that kind of quickly move eastward. So some damaging wind potential on the north side of this, but certainly some rotation as well. I mean, you don't even have to get to our rotation tracks. And we'll look specifically at the individual rotation tracks in the latest updated version coming up at 6 o'clock. But you can kind of see how the air is swirling into that one there, Yazoo City. So, I mean, just there looking at the wind alone on our model, you can see that there's some spin with this. And so that threat shifting southward, we're definitely watching for you in Ridgeland, Canton, north of Jackson, Philadelphia there, back toward Carthage and Forest by 10 to 11 o'clock tomorrow night. Strong to severe thunderstorms producing rotation and possibly tornadoes continue there into the post-midnight time period. As you can see, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, still probably some strong severe thunderstorms down in central Mississippi with this setup. And then Thursday, it's all out of here. So here's our severe weather threats. Strong tornadoes, a possibility out of thunderstorms for tonight and tomorrow. And that's an important distinction to say that I don't expect we have necessarily everything perfect for tornadoes tonight, but an isolated strong tornado remains a possibility overnight near the Tennessee state line. Some strong wind gusts possible, hail in excess of 1.5 inches in size possible, and then flooding rainfall amounts, in some cases in excess of 3.5 to 4 inches, a possibility out of this. After this system kind of kicks on through, looking toward Thursday, we're much cooler. And this will be a sign that we're bringing in less stable air, low 50s, low 60s. And then Thursday, lots of clouds, but we're going to probably stay mainly dry through the day, though we expect we'll probably have some showers that probably run a little farther north than this. Our strike model, much less aggressive on the rainfall. It says dry air wins this war, and that does seem fairly logical in this situation with highs on Thursday, a lot cooler, upper 60s, lower 70s. So back again here to your 7-day forecast, and we'll kind of talk through some of your thoughts related to what's going on here in just a moment. But Wednesday, tomorrow, multiple chances prior to dawn, really after midnight tonight, prior to dawn tomorrow morning. We're going to have some severe weather potential there. And then obviously tomorrow afternoon, possibly the more significant threat. Most of the rain chances there early Thursday in particular. We're tracking those. Friday we're drier, Saturday we're drier, and then spotty showers, maybe some rumbles there back into Sunday with more limited rain chances by Monday, and looking into the first part of next week. So I'm looking again at your comments here. Join the conversation and make sure to like and subscribe. Just search for Mississippi Live pretty much anywhere and you can find us. But in particular, when we're talking about on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV, the reason you want those is the app is great. We love you and use it. But if you have our apps for Roku or Fire Stick or Apple TV, you're not burning off your battery here while you're waiting for storms to move in and waiting to go to shelter. So make sure to download our apps for smart TVs there. Just search for Mississippi Live on those different platforms there. What is the risk for tornadoes in Holly Springs? I'll tell you right this. I can't see nothing. Well, understand this, in the middle of the night, that's one of our challenges there, is that you can't see anything. And so we're probably not going to visually be able to spot these tornadoes. But I would say Holly Springs has a decent chance to see tornadoes overnight after midnight tonight. Maggie and myself will be watching things to make sure that we can track those for you there in Holly Springs. But there is definitely a potential there for locations like that as well. I see Talisha asking about travel toward Oxford tomorrow. I expect that we just need to be conscious of where we're going and when we're going there tomorrow, and whether or not travel makes sense for different locations. For some of us it will, for others of us it won't. As long as you have the Mississippi Live Weather app, you should be in pretty good shape. It will let you know, will give you alerts, and we'll let you know, hey, we don't need to be traveling at this point here. Certainly afternoon, the impacts are going to increase for tomorrow. For locations such as south of Oxford in particular there. Corinth, yes, we're definitely watching for you, Corinth, late overnight, probably after 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, when you're most likely to see that there as well. So download our app, their iOS and Android devices. If you don't mind, I'm going to write a note here to myself for just a moment. And before we go any further, at 6 o'clock here, what I'm going to work on behind the scenes after we shut down this live stream here in a moment, I'm going to look specifically at the latest on storm rotation. We're going to back-to-back compare our two main projections that show storm rotation to try to isolate where we have the most likely crossover between those two. I don't want to use that word because we use crossover elsewhere, but ultimately where we see both of those trying to coalesce around the same idea. We will look at those rotation tracks coming up here at 6 o'clock. I'm going to put that here. And I need to fix this where the alerts and where this goes over top of the alerts. So I need the QR over alerts. Anyway, download our app for all the various different devices there. Give me a moment here. I'm going to pull back up that chat. Look and see a little bit more of what we have there. Again, someone was asking about Gabe. Gabe's on paternity leave. He and his wife had a new baby this last weekend, and he's doing the smart thing. As dangerous as tornadoes are, wives that you leave at home a couple days after a baby's born, probably more dangerous. And I mean that with all due respect to something that I could obviously never do and pain I could never take. So Gabe's going to be at home. He's going to be helping out his wife and taking care of his family tonight and tomorrow. So we're a little short-staffed, but we'll be just fine. North Mississippi Storm Chasers are going to be out there. We're going to have Maggie and myself, and we're going to keep you safe as we tend to warm you first as well. So what about Tupelo around 11:30 tomorrow? Chances in Tupelo are interesting because you're kind of in this zone between the morning round and the afternoon where it really, really ratchets up in the afternoon. So Tupelo's in an interesting spot there where you could potentially have, if you got something in the early afternoon, I think the front, the fuel, and everything could be more positioned for you. So it's really interesting. I think, again, the peak threat is to your south in the daytime and to your north in the pre-dawn hours. So Tupelo's kind of in a spot there like West Union, where we're kind of in between. I see someone mentioning can't wait to see us in West Union Thursday night there, and I got to double check where we're at on that, on where we ended up for our game of the week. It's probably going to be Ethan, because Gabe is on paternity leave, so I'm the only one in here to be able to do the weather that night. So Ethan's going to be out there at wherever our game of the week is. So I'm going to have to double check to see how the voting is on that there. Appreciate all y'all for doing that there. Batesville, we're watching for you overnight. You're kind of on the southern fringe of our overnight chance, and the majority of tomorrow's afternoon chances primarily to your south. We're going to look a lot more at all of these different things coming up during our 6 o'clock broadcast. Before we go, I just want to remind everybody about probably one of the most important things, and that is Weather Call. Weather Call is a phone notification system that will let you know if you're in the danger zone. If you're under a tornado warning, it will call you. It will call you back. If a tornado is confirmed to be moving toward your area, it will call you for major flash flooding like what they had with the camp in Texas. I think that was last year. It might have been the year before. Lost track of time. And of course, call you as long as you select it for damaging severe thunderstorms for wind and hail. It comes at a cost, but it is worth every penny for the peace of mind it comes with. It's the phone call you don't want to get. There will be plenty of times, there'll be some times where the tornado sirens are going off and you don't get a weather call because you're not officially in the warning. So it's when you're in danger, it calls you. And if you've watched this before, you know there are some cases where that phone call hits my phone before I ever tell you about a new warning coming out. In fact, most of the time, that's the way it works. It's that fast and that reliable. I have it for my family. And with the overnight nature of these thunderstorms, especially tonight near the Tennessee state line, this is something you should definitely sign up for. So you can get more information at that QR code below to stay up to date on what to expect. And again, coming up at 6 o'clock, we're going to break down in more detail the locations, the timing on the rotation, and the tornado threat. This is probably one of our 2 or 3 most significant tornado threats of the year on the way for tomorrow. And we have, again, the pre-dawn chance as well as the afternoon and evening chance. So 2 areas that we're targeting, timing those out, looking storm by storm, county by county, coming up at 6 p.m. here in the Room to Room Weather Center. And make sure to download our apps for your smartphones, for your tablets, and search for Mississippi Live wherever your smart TV apps are found. We'll see you at 6.